In this tutorial we will have a simple chase enemy. Okay, if we get closer to enemy, as you can see enemy is chasing. Okay, and when it's too much close, enemy is stopping right there, and we need to play attack animation, or basically enemy should attack. We will take a look of that later. Okay, so without furthering delay, let's get into this topic. We will pick our Navmesh. Okay, basically we want enemy game object to avoid this obstacle, and should basically choose a shortest pathway to get our player. Okay, to chase our player, enemy should avoid this obstacle. Okay, to do so, basically to bake a net mesh. Okay, what we need to go to window in the top. Firstly we need to install it. Okay, so go to window in the top, then go to package manager, and then select unity registry. Okay, select unity registry from my assets to unity registry, and over there you will able to find ai navigation. Okay, you need to install that. So just wait, and scroll down. Okay, so over here ai navigation, it says I already have installed it. Okay, so you need to install over here. You can see in the top right section install button, so install it. Okay, after install that. Okay, after install that, what we want to bake our Navmesh. Basically which basically enemy should avoid this obstacle, and should have a basically should have choose a shortest part to chase our player game object. Okay, to do so we will select all of these obstacle. Okay, select all of these obstacle, and we will assign this obstacle as a obstacle layer. Okay, before that let's bake. Okay, so I'm going to select this game object, create empty game object. So go to hierarchy, right click, and create empty game object. Let's go to transform, right click, and reset the transform of that game object, and I'm gonna drag it top of my hierarchy so I can easily see it, and select that game object. Go over to add component section. Okay, and find over there Navmesh surface. Okay, and then click on this bake. So as you can see, and this color. Okay, also added up in this top. Okay, we don't want, so we want to get rid of that. Basically enemy should avoid this obstacle. Instead enemy just have to basically have to chase our player game object on this surface, on the ground, not on top of it, as you can see. So we need to get rid of that. Okay, so to get rid of this, basically enemy should not basically jump on this obstacle. To do so, select all of this obstacle. Okay, select all of them, go over to inspector. In the top right you can see layer, so click on it, click on add layer. Let's call this layer obstacle. Okay, obstacle, and then go over to this all of this game object, select all of this obstacle. So I'm going to select by holding down shift. Let's go to inspector, let's assign layer to obstacle. Now we assign it this basically all of this obstacle as a obstacle layer. So let's go to that game object. Over there workable surface, as you can see we have chosen workable surface. And if we move over to advanced, we can see, sorry, not object collision, as you can see include layers. So we don't want this obstacle enemy to jump on, or enemy just should avoid this obstacle and have to find a shortest path to chase our player game object. Okay, so as you can see include layers, and we just chasing everything. So we're gonna uncheck this obstacle. Okay, we will uncheck this obstacle. If we move over to object collision and then include layers, we will uncheck this obstacle and we will re-bake. Okay, so basically click on this bake one more time, and now as you can see those basically we are now good. Okay, basically as you can see it's gone. Oh, okay. So now enemy game object only gonna just chase our player game object in this surface as you can see. And we oh, and we just enemy will avoid this obstacle. Okay, and you can choose any layer you want to. Okay, unchecked or check, basically which what game object you want to avoid and what game object you don't want to avoid. Okay, so that's the case. So we assign it firstly this obstacle as a obstacle layer. Okay, and then we uncheck this obstacle and click on this bake, so it will bake our the surface, and enemy will just gonna target our player game object in this surface, not enemy will avoid this obstacle. Okay, so I hope you get the idea of it. So let's now create our enemy game object. Okay, so let's go to hierarchy, right click, then 3D object, then select this cylinder. Okay, so I'm gonna drag this cylinder a little bit up, so this will be enemy. Okay, this will be our enemy. I'm gonna drag little bit down. This will be an enemy. Let's call it a cylinder, from cylinder to enemy. Okay, enemy. And then what we want, it's added up a capsule collider. We're gonna leave it as it is. Okay, and we will add a component, it's called Navmesh agent. Navmesh agent, so click on this add component and find over there Navmesh agent. Okay, so what this component actually does, basically this component right over here, as you can see, already have a speed, basically a chasing speed. Okay, and then we can see acceleration with stopping distance, all of this. Basically this is component is responsible for moving our enemy game object. Okay, and we will use a function, it's called set destination, and it will take the position or the target position where you want to go. So this and we will go this amount of speed, by this amount of speed, but we can adjust it right over here as you can see. Okay, so this component is responsible for moving our enemy game object, rotating, acceleration, all of kind of these things. Okay, so let's create a script to basically we have to specify where we want to go, or the target position. So we want to target our player game object. Okay, so let's go to assets, firstly project tab, then assets, right click, create C subscript, name it to something like enemy. I already have created, so I have it over here. So I'm gonna select this enemy game object. Let's select that script and drag it to add component section. Okay, and let's double click that to open up in a Visual Studio. So what we want, firstly we want to basically firstly we want a range. Okay, we will create a sphere, check sphere, something like that, from this enemy. Okay, and from that sphere, if this player game object get into that sphere, then we will chase our player game object, basically some kind of attack range you can say. Okay, if this player comes in that attack range, then our enemy game object should attack or chase our player game object. Okay, so let's do that. So let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. To create that a sphere from our enemy game object, what we have to use this physics. Okay, physics dot check sphere. Okay, physics dot check sphere, check sphere, and this over here will take the position from where we want to create our that sphere. Okay, so we want to create our sphere from enemy position, enemy center position. So basically we have to type transform dot position. Okay, transform dot position, basically this position from center of player. Okay, from center of player, sorry, not player, from center of enemy game object. Okay, and the second thing, it will take the radius. So let's go to top of our class, let's specify a radius. Okay, so let's make a public float. Let's call this one attack. radius. Okay, and by default I'm gonna set it to 1f. Okay, and let's set it to 3f instead, a little bit larger. So let's pass right over here this attack radius. Okay, and the third thing, it will take the layer mask, basically which layer we want to target. So in our case we want to target our player. Okay, so we need to pass our player layer. So before we do that, so what we need, we select the player game object in Unity. Okay, and go to inspector. In the top right you can see layer, so click on it, add layer. Okay, and then name the layer what you want. So I already name it. Then go back to that game object and assign that layer to player. So as you can see, I already have assigned this player as a player layer. Okay, so I'm gonna go to script. Oh, okay, let's make a layer mask. So let's make a public layer mask, basically which layer we want to target. Let's call it layer mask. Okay, and close that off with semicolon, and let's pass right over here layer marks. And as a layer mask we will choose that our player layer. So this sphere we will only check for that player game object. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. So this function right over here, it can be true or false depending upon if the player really get into that sphere with this much of attack radius or attack range, you can say sphere. If the player gets in, so this right over here, this function will return us a true value, else this function will return us a false value. So whatever the result is, let's store into a bool parameter which can be true or false. Okay, so let's create a bool. Let's call it in attack. Okay, in attack range, range, and let's set equal to this. So this in attack range can be true or false depending upon if the player gets in that sphere or collide with that enemy sphere, then this right over here will be true. So that's why this and in attack range will be true. Okay, else this will be false. Okay, so we will check if in attack range. Okay, in attack range, if it's really true, is equals to true, or you can leave it like this, it's also means true, make some curly brackets. So what we want, then we want to chase our player game object. We want to chase our player game object. Okay, so let's print out a message firstly. So debug.log, if it's really working or not. Let's call it something like chase chase player chase, something like chase. Okay, and close that off with semicolon, control s to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Okay, now let's move to Unity and select this enemy game object. We need to first we need to assign those. Okay, and transform dot position basically means center position of enemy game object right over there. Okay, so if I select this enemy game object, as you can see attack radius, we can adjust it right over here, and layer marks it says nothing. So I'm gonna choose this player. So they only gonna check for player game object. Okay, and we assign it our player as a player layer. Okay, so the problem is that we cannot able to see the sphere. Okay, we also want to see the sphere or the sphere around this enemy position. Okay, to see we have to use another function. So let's go to strip and bottom, we will type on draw gizmo selected. Okay, and this function over will draw the sphere from our enemy position, from center position. We will pass our center position of enemy. Okay, to draw we have to use this gizmos. Okay, gizmos dot draw where sphere. Okay, where sphere, and this function as a first argument it will take the position from where we want to draw. So let's pass our transform dot position. Okay, basically means center position of our enemy game object. Okay, and the third thing, it will take radius. So let's pass our attack radius and close that off with semicolon, control s to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Now we will able to see a sphere will be drawn from a center position of this enemy game object. Okay, we will able to see that. So just wait, and as you can see and we can specify the radius, we can increase, we can decrease, something like, let's do it 6f or 6 unit. Okay, and if this player game object gets into this sphere, then this enemy, so I'm gonna increase the attack radius little bit, something like 10, and I'm gonna take my player game object little bit farther away from this enemy. Okay, so if this player game object gets into this sphere, we would able to see that message gonna pop up says chase. Okay, we checking if the we checking, as you can see right over here in this function, this can be true or false depending upon if the player really gets in that sphere, basically this right over here into this, then this function will be true. Okay, so in attack range will be true, and if attack range is true, then we just printing out the message says chase. Okay, so let's go to unity and let's select this console. Okay, and let's hit this play button. We should able to see that message gonna pop up right away if we get into this sphere of this enemy game object. Okay, let me show that to you. So if I go, as you can see a message getting pop up, as you can see we are inside of this sphere, we printing out message okay, multiple times because we're doing inside of update function. Okay, so instead of printing out message, what we want, I'm gonna unplay this. We want to chase our this player game object. We want to target our we want run after this player game object. Okay, to do so, let's go open up the enemy script. Instead we will use this agent dot set destination. So basically what we need a reference of this Navmesh agent of our enemy game object, then we can set destination. Basically that function will take the target position where you want to go. Okay, so we need a reference of this Navmesh agent. So let's go to script. So uh, 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 before you take the reference, what you need to include, so I'm going to remove these two namespaces from the top. Instead I will use using, okay, and make sure you include this namespace. It's called unity engine, using unity engine dot ai. Okay, and this function will allow us to give a reference of that Navmesh agent. Okay, so let's create a public, okay, public Navmesh agent. Let's call it agent. Okay, agent. And we also need player transform. So we want to target our player transform, basically position, rotation, and scale. Okay, so let's also create a public transform. Okay, transform. Let's call it player and close that off with semicolon. And instead of printing out message, we will go to that agent, agent or that Navmesh agent, and we will use this function. It's called set destination, and this function right over here will take the target position. As a target position, we will pass our player dot position. Okay, player dot position, and close that off with semicolon, control S or to save your code. And now let's move to unity, and of course we need to assign those variables. Okay, in enemy game object we need to drag Navmesh agent to agent section. It will be none, so we need to drag that. Okay, so as you can see Navmesh agent, we name it agent and it says none. So let's select this Navmesh agent and drag it. Now we have the reference of this Navmesh agent, and also select the player game object and drag it to player transform. Okay, as you can see. Okay, and now if we hit this play button in the top, okay, we should able to see this enemy game object now gonna chase our player game object if we get into this sphere. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's, as you can see, but it's pushing our player. So what we want, so I'm gonna unplay this. If we get closer to something like right over here too much, we don't want to get Basically if we are too much close to enemy game object, or sorry, enemy game object, yes, enemy, so we want our enemy to be stopped. Okay, so that's why we will go to this Navmesh agent component, and as a stopping distance I'm gonna choose 3. Okay, so it will check 3 distance between them, and enemy will stop right away. Let me show that to you, and you can increase the speed. You can play around with these attributes. Okay, let me show that to you one more time. Let's hit this play button in the top, and we should able to see the enemy. When the enemy gets too much close to our player game object, enemy will stop, which is the 3D, as you can see, as we have chosen. Okay, so let's go. So as you can see, enemy gets stopped. Basically the distance between is 3. Okay, and if I increase the speed something like 10, you're gonna able to see enemy will chase us too much fast, as you can see. And enemy is avoiding this obstacle, as you can see. If I just take sorry, you will able to see that enemy is avoiding this obstacle. Instead they finding basically finding a shortest part, a shortest path to chase, as you they avoiding this obstacle. Okay, we only bake this snap, basically this surface or this ground we baked. Okay, so I hope you get the idea of it. And lastly, thanks for watching this video.